The Raw after SummerSlam is in the books, and now we are on the road to Paris. What's going on, guys? We are back here for our WWE Raw review and to put a nice cherry on top on what was a very wild SummerSlam weekend, and it did not have its it didn't have its shortages of controversies, that's for sure, especially with what we saw at the end of night 2 last night after Cody Rhodes beat John Cena for the championship in what was a tremendous SummerSlam main event, one of Cena's best matches in many, many years. And then we had the return of Brock Lesnar. That's pretty much been the dominant topic of conversation throughout the last day or so, especially on social media. And tonight on Raw, we didn't get any Brock Lesnar. Doesn't sound like we're even going to get any Brock Lesnar on Friday either, as John Cena is advertised for SmackDown and he'll have some things to say. So Brock might be there, but neither Brock nor Cena nor Cody were on the show tonight. Tonight was more about Saturday's SummerSlam, night 1, the big heist, the big ruse of the century. Seth Rollins, of course, revealing at the end of Saturday night's main event, Saturday night's SummerSlam main event, that he was indeed not injured. He dropped his crutches, came down, cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase on the new world champion CM Punk, and that was pretty much the focal point of tonight's Raw. So we knew that we were probably going to see some sort of a confrontation with Rollins and Punk and Roman, because Roman was scheduled to be in the building. It was reported that he was there earlier on in the day. So we knew that whatever they were going to do tonight on Monday Night Raw was going to involve probably all three of those guys. And then they wound up booking a championship match tonight in the main event, Seth Rollins versus LA Knight. And that's where I had a feeling we would see these guys run out. Now, as soon as that match was made tonight on Raw, I put up on social media, my question to you guys was, do you think that, and this is all hypothetical at this point because we don't know anything yet, but if Brock Lesnar were to face John Cena at Clash in Paris, something that I think WWE might do, and Paris, they might be a little bit different of a crowd. You know, if WWE wants to, do their best to get Brock the best reaction, I think overseas and international crowds are always so hyped, so jacked, so energetic. I think they would probably find less boos over there for Brock, I think, than over here. So if they're going to book the match there, John Cena and Brock Lesnar, because if Brock Lesnar came back and F5 John Cena at the end of SummerSlam, I think we can all deduce that there's probably going to be a match here, right? So if they do that in Paris, I'm wondering if Seth Rollins even needs to defend the championship there. Obviously, he's got 3 big contenders staring him down right now. LA Knight, who beat him on Saturday night's main event, and then he got screwed over tonight in a disqualification. Also, CM Punk, who got cashed in on SummerSlam after winning the title. And then, of course, former multi-time world champion and icon Roman Reigns still needs to get him a piece of Seth Rollins as well. So you can make a case for all 3 of these guys to get championship matches. So I'm wondering if they're going to book a 3-way, LA Knight, Punk, and Roman, with the winner getting a shot against Seth Rollins, or are they going to book maybe like an international incident style 6-man? Remember that 1996 match that was 29 years ago last month? And it was Ahmed and Shawn and Sid against Camp Cornette, right? So maybe it's Camp Rollins versus Punk, LA Knight, and Roman Reigns. And you could do that match in the opener, because as we know, Roman Reigns either opens or closes. And if you're going to have John Cena and Brock Clash in Paris, then I seriously doubt Roman Reigns will get a one-on-one title match there, against Raw. He could, but I feel like that would have to open the show. Or do you think, based on the conclusion of what we saw tonight on Raw, if it's going to be some sort of a big 6-man at Clash in Paris, or maybe they're booking that for another time, I don't know. So I think it's either going to be Rollins in his crew versus those 3 in a big tag, or you're going to have like some sort of triple threat where you have to figure out who's going to get the next title shot, because right now Punk, Roman, and Knight all have claims to that. So it's going to be a matter of what Adam Pearce decides. Or, as he was saying several times tonight on Raw, it's not a normal night. We're not going through typical times right now. So maybe if he were to book that 6-man, like I said, maybe he'll make a stipulation saying, hey, if Team Punk, Roman, and Knight win, whoever scores the pin gets the title shot. Whoever scores the fall. Doesn't matter who you pin. It can be Reed, Breaker, Rollins, whatever. If you guys win, whoever gets the pin gets the title shot against Rollins. and then give something for Rollins' team to fight against or whatnot. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know. But Rollins' next challenger, it doesn't feel like it's going to be a one-on-one. It feels like it's going to be some multi-man thing. Or maybe Pierce is still pissed about Rollins and all the lying he did to fool everyone with that injury, so maybe he's going to make him defend in a four-way. Could just be a fatal four-way. You could weed out LA Knight and do another three-way, WrestleMania Night 1 main event rematch, Rollins, Punk, and Roman somewhere in the very, very near future. So I think it's either a three-way, a four-way, a tag. So it's basically one of all of the matches you could possibly do. Boy, what genius insight from good mic work, huh? But that's the way it felt like it went down tonight. We didn't see any surprises either. A lot of fans assumed that once the match was made and Adam Pearce made LA Knight versus Seth Rollins for the championship in the main event, a lot of people were saying the same thing on social media. Are we going to see a new member of Rollins' faction? And I didn't really think we would, because we knew we were going to get Punk and Roman showing up. Punk is pissed off about losing the title, and of course Roman wants to get him some as well. So I don't know how you would be able to debut a new member tonight with all that other stuff going on. Now, the babyfaces got beat down, so you could have had that new member come in and help Rollins, Reed, and Breakker put them all away and take care of them and destroy them and whatnot. But I felt like maybe it was just a little too early to bring in a new member. We need to soak in Seth Rollins' title run, or win, I should say, first, before adding any members. And if you were going to add any member, I wouldn't try to put another big heater in there. I'd stick Becky in there or something. That might be fun. So no new member for the faction tonight, but Rollins and his crew still stood tall, and they are now stronger than ever. And like I said on SummerSlam Saturday in the reaction and the review and everything, I said I'm just really, really happy that Seth Rollins is not injured, because we did think there was, at least with me, when we were talking about, is it a work? Is it legit, his injury? I was leaning like 75% legit and 25% work. So I was saying all along, if it turns out that he's not injured, that's great, because you don't want him to be out for a year for surgery, and that's screwing up all of your creative plans. Could mess up your next few pay-per-views, could mess up WrestleMania, basically going to mess up everything. So the fact that he's not hurt, made me breathe a sigh of relief that hopefully, Monday Night Raws will be strong for the rest of the year, because for a while there, I thought they were going to lose their biggest piece. So I'm happy that he turned out not to be injured. But now that he's champion, I'm trying to think of what his trajectory is going to be, because we have Clash in Paris, and then we don't have another one until Perth. So there's not a pay-per-view or a PLE here in the States until Survivor Series here in San Diego at Petco Park, which I will be at, by the way. So that's crazy. So I don't know, how the order of these matches and what you do them. Plus you got to think about John Cena's retirement and how he's going to be now factored into the Brock Lesnar stuff. Who knows? But in terms of Raw tonight, it was an okay show. We had Adam Pearce making some interesting rulings here. And overall, I'd like to know what you guys thought of the show, A, B, C, or D, 1 through 10. Let me know what you thought of tonight's Monday Night Raw, and then we will get into the results here, and we'll talk about a little bit of wrestling news as well. But that is basically what Raw was about tonight. Rollins, new World Heavyweight Champion, coming out, rubbing it in everybody's face. We also had Becky Lynch and Nikki Bella apparently kickstarting a little feud as well. So we had some interesting things to talk about on this evening's Raw review. Also, few matches already set and booked for next week as well, which is good. Let's do a couple of quick shout-outs before we really get rolling here. I'm just going to say hi to Max and Zane G. We got Rodrigo in the house, Melissa, Doug Unfunny, Super Fluffy Toaster, Joshua Aparicio. What's up? I'm not going to lie. I had a hard time watching Raw tonight. It was good, but the whole Brock Lesnar situation had turned me off, and I feel like I'm not alone. Yeah, we're going to talk about Brock Lesnar in just a second. Crazy J26, Nick Musser is in the house as well. We've got Garrett, DJG. We have Daniel Berry Sports, Jay Lambo, Kevin, Ricky Zalvadar, Mike 765, David Brown, Angie, Law, Big Glenn, Stephen Harris, Ben Espinoza, Ajax Johnson, Ram K. And we've got the new one, Vontae. What's up, bro? Also, Brian Nino, good to see you. New one's got $5 for us. What's up? I'm kicking myself because I left my Bring Back Brock Lesnar sign on purpose. Thought it would be too controversial, and I heard he was banned. I did see your tweet. You tweeted me a picture of that. Might have been good that you didn't bring that, considering all of the chatter today, but that is something I do want to open up with here tonight on the podcast. We have to talk more about Brock Lesnar. Now, I've talked a lot about that on social media today. There's been a lot of opinions, of course, that you would expect. But him coming back last night at the end of SummerSlam, I think my biggest issue with it, and a lot of fans too, is that everything that we saw last night was really good. I thought last night was a solid night 2 of SummerSlam, and my God, did Cody and John Cena deliver in that main event. I think Cody had a big hand in making that match as good as it was. And as we were watching it and we were vocalizing how good we thought it was going in real time, I was saying it's like, right before our very eyes, WWE, they might on the surface try to pretend there's some creative geniuses, right? But they know they fucked up that WrestleMania 41 main event. Triple H knows that. He knows the fans hated it, and John Cena and Cody Rhodes probably do too. So the fact that we are watching them like almost make good on that, this is the match we should have gotten at WrestleMania. And you could still have John Cena win. It just should have been booked and presented a completely different way. And the match itself, physically in the ring, was dog shit. This was so much better. This is one of John Cena's longer matches. You'd probably have to go back about 10 years to find him in a 30-plus minute match. And for him to be in a match like that at this stage of his career, in there with Cody, after having such a stinker at WrestleMania, they did phenomenally. It was a great match. It was a great story. Cody winning was all I needed. We got the big surprise on Saturday night. Seth Rollins cashed in and dropped the crutches. Oh my God, OMG moment, right? You didn't need one here. If that show would have gone off the air with Cody Rhodes and John Cena, celebrating together, which I was still waiting for the nut shot, because a lot of us were still trying to process why John Cena did that babyface promo on SmackDown. Like, wait, all of a sudden you're just a babyface? So I was thinking that was just a ploy to fool Cody Rhodes and to tell the story of Cody not flinching and being able to see John's bullshit coming. But then when the match is over, Cody wins. Cena and him share mutual respect. They put it all behind them. They reconcile. Cody leaves Cena in the ring by himself. That is all, as a fan, maybe not for everybody else, but just me personally, that's all I needed. That was a satisfying end to a pay-per-view. I didn't need anything else to save it. Maybe Saturday was a little weaker, so Rollins coming in and cashing in, I think, really made that night. But I didn't need any sort of extra little surprise at the end here, because what they gave us was wonderful. Good match between yesterday and today, kind of like an unofficial torch passing here, which is what I said all along. I never thought there was going to be a double turn last night, because I just think that Cody Rhodes, knowing Cody the way we know him, he would want John Cena to retire while there is a mutual respect to do with them, not like part ways permanently as bitter mortal enemies. That's not what Cody wants. Cody's got a heel turn coming, and it'll probably come in 2026. 2027 at the latest, but I think it's next year. And there will be a time for that. But here was way too early, and I did not see that happening at all. So we just got the good match. So we didn't get the heel turn surprise. We didn't get the double turn surprise. We didn't get The Rock coming out, because the chatter during the day wasn't Brock Lesnar. It was The Rock. And a lot of people were tagging me in tweets and asking me, do you want to see The Rock tonight? Do you think we'll see The Rock tonight? And I'm like, I was saying, I don't want anything to do with Dwayne. Keep him the fuck out of this whole situation. I don't need him. I don't want him. I have no interest in him. Every time he's here, he just complicates things, and keep him away. And we've talked about Brock Lesnar. He's brought up all the time. And I keep saying the same thing. I'm like, WWE's probably not going to touch him, at least until the lawsuit's over. Now, WWE's not above bringing Brock back based on, his wrongdoings that he's been alleged. I feel like they've done business and brought back worse a few times. But bringing him back now when this sex trafficking lawsuit, does that register? The fact that he's implemented or, in a sex trafficking lawsuit is wild that they would bring him back. But we might have learned some things today about why they brought him back. Because last night we learned real quick why WWE did do the promo on Friday with John Cena, because it was confusing to us up until Brock came back. Well, John Cena's just in a promo going to decide he's babyface again? It's weak and rushed and fast and too damn quick. But now Brock is back. So if John Cena has some personal wish list of a couple of people he wants to work with before he retires, and one of them is Brock, you got to get him back to being a babyface. And so they did. And so that actually stuck. That wasn't a trick. That wasn't a ploy. That wasn't Cena trying to lull Cody into a false sense of security or the fans. You know, he really, really did turn back into a good guy. We also learned why WWE, as we learned on Saturday, has decided to change the format of their pay-per-view or PLE post shows. What a shock. What a shock. They are no longer going to be taking questions. They are just going to do their own post-show so they can give themselves self-blowjobs, suck themselves off without ever having the threat of answering a difficult question honestly. Funny how that works out for them, isn't it? And then Triple H, who is so far up his own ass, he knows what he had for breakfast 3 days ago. He says last night in the pre-show that this is what WWE is. It's not sitting in a room with people asking questions. These are the true WWE fans. Do these people believe what they say? Do they know and recognize and understand how obnoxiously full of dog shit they are? My God, any idiot with a fucking halfway developed brain can see right through this stuff. You know, they are very, very MAGA-like, you know, where they're willing to sweep anything under the rug. Nothing is over the line for them. And then if things do get a little hard and they do have to worry about answering tough questions, they just go la 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 la. You know, it's ridiculous. But we also heard too as to why Brock Lesnar may have been brought back, because one of the things I was saying last night was that, hey, I don't work for that company. I'm not a part of their decision-making process, so don't fucking yell at me about anything about Brock Lesnar. My job is just to come up here and talk about it, which is what I'm doing, and offering my opinions. I've got no say in the matter. There's nothing I can do about it at all. But one thing that we were saying last night is the same thing that we've been saying every time Brock's name is being brought up, because of his association and being implicated in this sex trafficking lawsuit. If I was a person of decision-making power in WWE, I would not be bringing him back. That's what I said as someone hypothetically putting myself in a WWE management shoes. As a fan, I also wouldn't bring him back, but also I don't want him back. Brock Lesnar was legitimately, full disclosure, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Easily top 5. Absolute physical specimen. Loved his work. I thought he was one of the most unique and special talents wrestling has ever seen. I think he could have been plugged in and dominated in any era. He wasn't before his time. He wasn't ahead of his time. He would have kicked anybody's ass anywhere. Anywhere. And I thought Brock was tremendous. Never did anything but sing Brock's praises because he's awesome. But based on what we've learned, and when you actually read that lawsuit, it's kind of a turnoff. Plus, Brock Lesnar has given us a ton of Brock Lesnar. He was here and doing stuff so much that as much as I like Brock Lesnar, he was starting to grow tiresome with me. How many Roman Reigns pay-per-view matches do we need between these two guys? How many times at WrestleMania must they face? How many SummerSlams must they face? How many championship matches or championship unification matches must they have? You know, and it was getting a little bit old, but that never really turned me on Brock Lesnar. I still liked Brock. I just wish WWE would give him different opponents, have him do different shit from time to time. And a lot of that stuff was growing a little bit tiresome. So after all the titles that Brock Lesnar won, coming back in 2012, and everything he's done since then, I am fully satisfied as a wrestling fan. I've gotten my full. My belly is full of Brock Lesnar. I'm not still hungry for him. I still don't clamor for him. I still don't need him. If that was the last we saw Brock Lesnar a couple of years ago when he lost to Cody, fine. That's all I need. I'm perfectly fine and happy as a wrestling fan having that be the last time I see Brock Lesnar. So as a fan, I didn't need him back either. But he's back. He's back now. He came out to an enormous ovation last night at SummerSlam because the crowd pops for anything. If Vince McMahon came out there, they'd pop for him too. So he came out there to a big, huge reaction. He circled the ring like a shark, much like he did when he returned the night after WrestleMania way back in 2012. Hopped in the ring and delivered an F5 to John Cena. Now today, After everybody has processed that information, everybody has lots of things to say about it. Some people are in this camp, some people are in that camp. But what I've noticed a lot is that a lot of people are really, really, really obsessed and concerned with the reaction of others. And that's the way it seems like it always is. It doesn't matter. You don't have to read anything. You don't have to inform yourself or educate yourself on anything. Most people in this camp who defend Brock Lesnar anyway have had their minds made up before utilizing a single brain cell. They don't want to educate themselves. They don't want to read the lawsuit. They don't want to think for themselves. They are too concerned about being angry at those who have a negative reaction to Brock. They are angrier at folks who might be turned off at Brock than they are about why they are turned off with him to begin with. It's the same thing that we just went through with Hulk Hogan. You had a whole group of one very, very specific type of commonly wired male. It's one very specific type of guy. And they were madder at people being angry at Hulk than for what Hulk said to begin with. And it's like that type of stuff. And I think it's just a matter of always trying to resist what you think the woke libtards are saying and whatnot. And I'm like, it's not like that. Just read the fucking lawsuit. Well, he didn't do anything illegal. We weren't saying he did. We know that. There was so much of that going around. That's not illegal. I'm like, buddy, we get that. We know that it's not technically illegal. We know he's not a defendant in the case. His name was brought up 44 times in this, one more time for those in the back, sex trafficking lawsuit. Sex trafficking lawsuit. He's brought up in it 44 times. Okay? The suit alleges that Lesnar received explicit photos and was arranged to meet Janelle Grant for sex at Vince McMahon's direction as part of a contract negotiation. There are screenshots of text messages outlining this stuff. And you can take the time to read through this and just judge for yourself. And you just judge where your line is. You know, some people, it's only about what's illegal. Well, if it's not illegal, I don't care. Okay, that's fine if that's the line you cross, or that's the line you have. And with Brock, I'm not drawing any line here. I'm not like a WWE boycotter. If I was going to boycott WWE or stop watching them, I would have done it long ago for shit far worse than this. My job is to comment on this return of Brock Lesnar and what I think about it. And what I think about it is it fucking sucks. And it's just another example of why this company does not give a shit about anything. They are willing to sweep anything under the rug. And I think part of the reason why they might have brought him back, I was confused about, why would they bring him back when the lawsuit is ongoing? Well, according to Meltzer, he is claiming that WWE's legal team cleared Brock Lesnar about 4 weeks ago. And he speculates that WWE's legal team is either confident that the Janelle Grant lawsuit will go to arbitration or that they are really close to a settlement. So those two things, if all of this is settled behind closed doors, then the grisly details of all of this will never see the light of day. But if this thing sees the inside of the courtroom, you're going to hear a lot more evidence and see a lot more stuff. So it's all in the lawsuit. The 60-something page lawsuit that's even been amended with more information. You should read this yourself. If you're one of those people that just automatically pre-wired to just defend Brock Lesnar, defend horrendous behavior, and actually be mad, take time out of your day about being mad at others who might have a little bit of an issue with this, how hard is it to see the other side of it? You mean to tell me if you actually read that lawsuit and what is alleged here and you process that and you absorb it, your anger isn't with what you read. It's how some people are choosing to react to it and that they might be a little bit turned off by the idea of Brock Lesnar coming back. That is what angers you. That is what is so controversial to you. Seems like a perfectly rational opinion and take to me. I can see people who have that side. I can understand their viewpoint, especially women. And if you notice today, if you actually took the time to suffer through the soul-sucking experience of reading through social media, it's all men. It's all one very specific type of commonly wired male. You know, it's the people, everything, nobody can be canceled for any reason. Otherwise, you're just a woke snowflake libtard. Meanwhile, they're acting like snowflakes about everything, which is a perfect example of their hypocrisy. So it's all men. It's the same. It's the anger boys. It's the same ones you'd expect. They're predictable and boring. You knew they were going to be climbing up the walls to defend this guy. You knew it was going to be, oh, what about? Or did you keep the same energy for? Do you feel that way about Darby Allin? Yeah, I feel that way about. It doesn't matter who they work for. It's like the Epstein list. Boy, the leftists are going to be really upset when they see the Clintons in it. I'm like, no, we wouldn't. I don't give a shit if they're in it or not. To be honest with you, I don't wear stupid fucking red hats with their name on it. You know, it's like people are trying to turn this into AEW versus WWE. Well, what about Darby? And what about Moxley? What about this person? What about that one? What about him? Today, we're talking about Brock. Brock came back last night. He's the subject of the day. It's not about AEW or anybody over there. We can talk about that another time. Sure, bring all their allegations to the front. We'll look at them. We'll judge that too. This idea that if you have a problem with Brock Lesnar, that you must not have a problem with somebody if they work for AEW is why stupid people win elections here, is because the fans are so fucking dumb. This is where their mind goes. If you have a problem and you're vocal about it, about your concern about Brock Lesnar coming back, they immediately turn it into, well, what about? This is simple behavior. Any basic college level psychology class will teach you about this very specific kind of human behavior. They're weak, they're boys, and they're stupid. And they're all mad, and they're all agitated, worried about what's woke, and worried about virtue signaling. You know, virtue signaling is track number 1 on their Shit We Always Say album. Oh my God, it's all virtue signaling, is woke, and blah, blah, blah. You know, they got Trump as their banner, and USA and MAGA, and believer in Christ, and all this stuff. They are the ones that defend sex trafficking. They are the ones who will read these allegations in a website and say, that's not over the line for me. Which tells me they must not be reading the lawsuit. Just read the lawsuit. Read it. Soak it in. Think about it. Look at what you read, and you weigh what's likely versus what's unlikely. Use your brain like a human. Just use it. Like, think. If you start smelling smoke, take a break. But think about it real hard. What do you think is more likely here? That Vince McMahon really had these text message exchanges with Brock Lesnar, or that Janelle Grant, for no reason whatsoever, is deciding to ruin Brock Lesnar's reputation for funsies? What do you think is more likely? That Vince McMahon said that's all that Brock is really guilty of here, receiving text messages. And he was going to meet this woman in a hotel room and have his way with her until COVID stopped that from happening. The rendezvous never took place. So no crime was committed, no sex trafficking was done, but it was talked about. Brock was a part of it. He engaged in it, and he was named over and over and over and over again in the lawsuit, along with Michael Hayes, who was all over that WWE Unreal documentary, if you don't forget. I got to watch more of those episodes, by the way, tonight. So what I'm thinking, I'm inclined here to believe Meltzer. And that is that WWE's legal team must feel like this is never going to see the inside of a courtroom. You know, a whole bunch of disgusting shit isn't going to come out in Discovery or whatever. They're going to be able to settle this behind closed doors. And Janelle Grant might be just looking for a fucking cool $200 million. She can probably get whatever she wants in terms of a dollar figure. Now, her legal team has come out multiple times and said it's not about that. But you can say that all you want. If Vince McMahon is like, I will pay this bitch $200 million to go away, I think they're going to take that. You know, so I think WWE is probably confident that all of this is going to wind up being settled with a big, big, big dollar amount. Because you haven't seen Brock Lesnar come out viciously and vigorously denying these claims. Shouldn't he be angry at Janelle Grant if none of this happened? Shouldn't he be lashing out at her for causing problems with his marriage, with his family? He's got a high school daughter who can throw fucking shot puts 2.5 fucking miles. You know, you don't think things are weird around that household right now? And if he was really innocent and didn't do any of that stuff, don't you think he would be out on Ariel Helwani's show bitching at this woman for just making up lies for no reason? He hasn't said a fucking word because he did it. We know he was involved in this. So if you don't have an issue with that and your line is, well, technically it wasn't illegal, then that's your line. You have every right to have that line, just like I have a right to have mine, and everybody else has a right to have theirs too. So I'm not to the point where, oh, this is disgusting. I got to boycott WWE. Fuck them. No, this is something that I have been accustomed to. I've already been prepped and groomed to expect these type of things to happen from this company. My job is just to offer my take on it. Oh, I wonder what Greg has to say about Brock coming back. Well, this is it. I wouldn't bring him back. If it was up to me, I wouldn't bring him back. But guess what? It ain't up to me. But man, everybody's just lashing out. And I think it's really weird that if your first instinct, if you read somebody's comment about being disappointed or upset about Brock coming back, and your first instinct is to lash out at them, you have a mental problem. I hate to tell you, but it's the boys. It's these lonely men. They're weak. They're insecure. And I think that you really see, especially on days like this on social media, and you see this in MAGAland, being the bad guy, being a dick, being a prick, feels like power to weak men. That's why they're like that. That's why retard is such a favorite word of Trumpers and MAGAland. They love that word. Why do they love it? Because what I said before, being a dick makes weak men feel powerful. And you see that all over the place today. So if you can show me some women other than Stephanie McMahon, show me a woman or women other than Stephanie McMahon that have some of these, that share these opinions, that say, what's the big deal? What did Brock do? So what? So he was going to use a woman to get his contract signed. Who cares? Show me a woman who's saying that. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm sure there's a few out there. But when you read the opinions and you hear folks' opinions about Brock Lesnar's return, what do you see? What pattern do you see? The camp that is not happy he's back is a very diverse camp. It's young, it's old, it's men, it's women, it's white people, it's Hispanics, it's blacks. You look at the other side, and we're talking about one type of human. Lonely men who somehow get off on being jerk-offs. It's out of balance. It's way more diverse on the other side. So just use your own judgment here, And I think part of the problem with society and everything is people's minds are made up before they even think. Don't you think that as a YouTuber, as somebody who tries to be honest and credible as much as I can, we're not all perfect at it, but I sure as hell try. Don't you think that if there was anything in that lawsuit that seemed unlikely, sketchy, uncharacteristic of Brock, of Vince, or anything like that, that I would keep that in mind? Don't you think that is something that I would take into consideration? That feels a little far-fetched. If there was anything in there that gave any sort of inclination that Brock is being wrongfully framed here, and he's been named in this as a way to destroy his reputation just because this Janelle Grant has got a killer instinct or a mean streak, and maybe Brock was rude to her backstage one night or something, so now she wants to ruin his life. If any of that was even remotely possible or true, I'd be the first one to speak up about it. I'm like, hey, her credibility was already fucking destroyed. Brock is coming out in interviews and he's viciously and vigorously denying this. He's angry at her for causing problems with his family. And he wants to set the record straight, so to speak. But he's not. None of that is happening at all. So everybody can just judge for themselves. So just read it. So if you're so staunchly defending Brock Lesnar, have you read the lawsuit? Because if you have, that means some pretty fucked up things are not over the line for you. And your line is just simply whether or not it's illegal or not. You know what else is not illegal? Saying, I'm a racist. That's not illegal. It's shitty. So to me, to the fans that have, number one, no problem with Brock being back, and also being angry at those who do, I just ask you this. Like, what is your line? Do you even give a shit? It's not about right or wrong or a moral compass or anything like that. I think it's about who you've decided are your enemies, and you are just naturally, by default, going to have the opposite opinion of them every time. And that is a really stupid way to live. And I say it every day. That's why a dumbass is currently in charge of everything, is because of that very reason right here. You cannot see eye to eye with anybody at all. Why is it so hard to understand where some people might be coming from? Because you don't see much of that opinion. It's either got to be very black and white. You didn't see too much of, I understand where they're coming from. I'm just happy that Brock is back. But if you have a problem with him being back, I get it. Show me one fucking opinion like that. Doesn't exist. You're either in or you're out. And I think that it's a lot of times can be way more complex than that, and you just have to, I just beg people to do their best to just think for yourself. Don't worry about anyone's reaction, because with me, I was reacting in real time. We were right here I didn't have time to check what everybody else was saying before I reacted to it. My reaction was, but the people are so against this, they got to run out there, and people who they don't like on social media are against it. That means they're going to be for it automatically. No questions asked, doesn't matter. And they're going to bend over. You're going to have the Jimmy Corderases and the Dave Pengers out there who are going to bend over backwards. They're so desperate for these allegations to not be true, they will just say anything to try to force that into belief. And they'll just believe it. David Penzer, I was watching, he kept asking about, I'm just asking questions here. Do we have any proof? I'm like, can you fucking read? Can you read? Just read that. And what do you think is more likely? That all this is bullshit, or maybe Brock and Vince really did have those exchanges? That's the way MAGA is. If Trump says it, it's true. If the world says otherwise, the world is lying. That's the mentality we're living in right now. And it was never more apparent and obvious than today when you're scrolling through your favorite little social media platform there and everybody is eating out their own buttholes. It's absolutely crazy. Just fucking nuts. And I'm just sitting here like, am I in the Twilight Zone here? Is it really that hard to explain to these people why some folks might be disappointed that Brock is back? How can you not grasp that viewpoint? Even if you don't agree, even if you're happy that Brock's back, how do you not get where they are coming from? It's so impossible in this country for anybody to see anybody else's viewpoint. Look at it from their perspective. Think about the women in the WWE locker room. I'd love to have a tape recorder playing in there today to hear some of those conversations. How do you think they feel? What Brock was all set to do and had no problem doing. And some of the things that goes through his mind and the mind of Michael Hayes and some of their former employers, how uncomfortable and gross they must feel, to be there. And I can understand that viewpoint. That's why I get it. I think about more women than men. I don't give a fuck about what men think. Men are dicks. But like with women, how are they processing this? What are their opinions? I don't really see a lot of them saying, oh yeah, Brock didn't do nothing wrong. Who cares? Let him out there. No, they're probably fucking grossed out by it. And the women in the WWE probably have to shut up about it because the women's division is doing so great there, and they're all doing so great. They probably don't want to rock that boat, but there's probably a lot of them there that don't feel very comfortable with this at all. How do you have a conversation with Brock? Like if you're a female talent, like aren't you, at least a bit weirded out or whatever? So I just beg people to at least try to see the other side, because I'll try to see the other side. I'm like, okay, let's see what their argument is. It's not illegal or whatever, but their argument is usually coming out of anger or rage at the other side. It's not really rooted in any logic at all. It's more about what the other folks are saying that you have to resist. It's not about what makes sense or not. So, when I look at the other side, I don't really see that side of it. If I'm WWE, I'm not touching him, and I don't see how bringing him back benefited them at all. Well, how did it benefit them? WWE's been doing pretty good 2025 has been a shaky year, but it's not been to the point where they need somebody to come in and save them. They've been doing some great shit. Pay-per-views have still been good. Women's division is on fire. Triple H, even with all of his faults, and it's what we do, and the chicken shit, horrible way he answers questions and runs away from them at every chance he gets, he is still infinitely better than Vince McMahon, and I'd much rather have him than Vince. So WWE is doing record number business, record numbers, and Brock is unnecessary. I feel like you're taking a chance creating controversy when you don't need it. You know, like, as you know, fans are going to resist him. You know how a lot of fans are going to be vocal about this. And he's definitely going to hear some boos. I guess it won't matter because he's a heel. But he's going to hear it from the audience. And at some point, Triple H can cancel all the pressers that he wants. He's going to find himself in an interview, you know, at some point. And hopefully somebody will ask him. He's going to have to answer this at some point. He can't run forever. And we've seen how terrible he is, how laughably bad he is. On Tony Khan's worst day, he could not be this bad at media than Triple H. I don't care if Khan's wearing a funny hat and glasses and answers a serious question, you know, in a little bit of an eyebrow-raising way. None of that is worse than Mr. Levesque here, who just chews on his own face when he answers questions like this. He can't do them. He's terrible at it. Shawn's better than him. Cody's tremendous. Triple H is terrible. He sucks at it. So he's not going to be able to run forever. He's going to have to address these rumors. And I think with WWE, it's just about mostly just sweeping it under the rug. Because if this thing goes to a settlement, and WWE's legal team apparently feels that that's pretty likely, which is why they cleared Brock for a return, then none of this stuff, the details come out, or at least any more than we know. You know, where if it goes through court, it's going to be a lot of media coverage, and you're going to hear a lot of this stuff, and it's going to drag WWE's name through the mud. So they are probably poised and prepared to pay this woman whatever it takes to make it go away. And I think Brock's return might have been a little hint as to how this lawsuit is going to go. Because if Grant's team is still adamant that they're taking it to the courtroom and whatnot, then a lot of stuff is going to come out. So bringing Brock back would be even more head-scratching than it already is. So in my opinion, I don't need Brock back. I didn't require him. I would have been perfectly fine never seeing him again, but now he is back. What kind of a run is he going to have? Is he going to just resume the contract that was already in place, or is he signed some new kind of deal, or is he in just briefly to work with John Cena? You know, and John Cena, he's probably going to get some flack for this too, because Triple H, I think, is trying to pawn it off on Cena, where tonight Michael Cole said Nick Khan and Triple H reached out to Brock a few weeks ago and told him that it was time to come home. And he said, let's do it. So that's the story, at least, you know, on camera. But, you know, it might have been John Cena saying, I want to work with Brock. We don't know. But Brock Lesnar and John Cena are heading for one more showdown, and that's not something that I thought we would see. So if it gets revealed that Cena wants Lesnar to be part of this, I think he's going to hear some criticism from the fans, you know, to associate with Brock after what has been alleged about him. But I don't want Brock back. I don't need Brock back, but he is back, and there's really nothing I can do about that. If it was up to me, he wouldn't be there, but I'm just the guy in front of the camera, so I have to give my opinions. I have to give my thoughts. I have to give my takes, say what I think they should do or not do, and all that stuff, because that's the job of a podcaster. But it's not my job to really do anything else other than that. So, well, I bet you're still going to watch. Yeah, it's my job. It's my job. Did you stop watching the NFL after Aaron Hernandez killed somebody? No. You're a fan of it. Some people might find this. I did see a lot of people saying, I'm not watching WWE anymore. That's great. That's great. I feel like because I have my lines too. You know, there's probably some sort of a line that will probably put me over the edge with WWE. I'm like, I can't. I can't. I mean, they're already getting there. Triple H next to Orange dumb fuck. They're planning some tribute to the troops shit on the White House lawn in a couple of years. So they might get to me eventually. But there are already a lot of people saying, I'm done with WWE. So that's their prerogative to do that. Boycott them. Don't boycott them. I'm not here to tell you what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And I don't want to be lectured either. You shouldn't watch them anymore. Why? I always have. I always have. So I watch AEW too. I watch wrestling because I'm a wrestling fan, and I have a YouTube channel where I talk about wrestling. So I'm going to watch wrestling shows. None of this should be difficult to wrap your head around. And I think a lot of the discourse today was really, really easy to understand situations being difficult for people to understand. I'm like, this isn't rocket surgery here. Just think about it. Think about why some people might be turned off by this. That's why they don't have girlfriends. Anyway, John Cena will be on SmackDown this Friday to address what happened to him at SummerSlam. And I think that John Cena and Brock Lesnar in Paris could actually be an intriguing thought in terms of the setting and the crowd involvement in that match. You know, I can't help Brock is here, so I'm going to have to review Brock's performances and talk about his matches, and it's just what we're going to have to do. So putting that in Paris in front of that crowd, they're probably going to make it more fun than we would ever see here. And we'll see once the lawsuit is over, you know, once they reach that settlement, once all that goes away, then they can be in full sweep under the rug, you know, mode and not have to worry about it anymore, because now all those details aren't going to come out and make us look worse, because not only is Vince McMahon a defendant, so is WWE. Brock is not, you know, but it's Vince and WWE, which are named in this lawsuit. And Brock is, you know, Brock just has some stories in there, as does Michael Hayes and a few others. And John Laurinaitis. And just look at that whole situation, you know. Look at the way Laurinaitis flipped and then flipped again. Is this the behavior of innocent men? For all you proof, is any of this sound like something that innocent people would do? Vince McMahon's responses, John Laurinaitis' responses, Brock Lesnar's responses. Is this the behavior of innocent men? It is not. It is not. The only way this is going to go away is for Vince to pay her off, which will ultimately basically be an act of admission anyway. Because if you're an innocent man, why the hell would you give someone $200 million or $100 million or whatever it's going to wind up being? Why would you do that? Wouldn't you fight to the death to clear your name? Wouldn't that be the only thing you cared about, is making sure the public knows that you are not the monster that is being alleged? Isn't that what you would want to do if you were wrongfully accused of these things? Or if your name was brought up in a very serious sex trafficking lawsuit that has now caused you problems with your wife and your family, and none of it was true? Wouldn't you be pissed? Wouldn't you be busting down her door and F5ing that little girl right into her pool if that was wrong? Or if she was doing that on purpose to fuck with your life and ruin your reputation and frame you? Wouldn't you go completely out of your mind to prove your innocence? But nobody's doing that. They're flipping on each other. You know, they're trying to do whatever they can to avoid the least, or to get the least amount of consequences, or to avoid the maximum consequences is what I should say. Just use your head. That's my whole point all day. Use your noodles. Just think about it. Forget what the libtards are saying or whatever's making you mad and your virtual signaling and your wokeness and all the shit you're bitching about. Just put all that out of your head for 1 second and then just think about the situation. Is it really hard? Is it that impossible? Children and boys have been making a lot of noise today. Children and boys. Men and boys. Oddly, not too many ladies. Most of them, they're different. They're normal. We have a small update on Karrion Kross and his contract. They were not at Raw tonight. Kross and Scarlett were not backstage at Raw, and word is their contract is up this weekend. So we'll talk about more of that in a minute, because Sami Zayn did mention them in his interview tonight on Raw, but then it was interrupted by the Sheamus and Rusev fight, and now Sami's booked in for a different match next week. So my belief that Kross was done after he lost at SummerSlam might be right. So we will see. We should review Raw now. Thank you so much for sitting through all that Brock Lesnar stuff, but man, it's just been a weird one. It's been a weird one online today, that's for sure. Let's talk about Monday Night Raw tonight in the Barclays Center over in Brooklyn. So hot crowd always in this building. Seth Rollins, new World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins. He opened the show with his crew to gloat and celebrate the heist of the century. Before we talk about that, since I was talking about Brock Lesnar for like 2 hours, let's knock out these super chats. I forgot that I wanted to do that first. I got the new one. Mike Witt, thank you for 5. With him not winning the U.S. title back, I want Jacob to come to Raw and feud with Seth's faction. I would like that. I kind of suggested something similar to that in the predictions for Jacob to be over on Raw, because I think he'd be really awesome over there. Zombie Fighter 89, thank you for that, my friend. Good to see you. Appreciate the $20 drop from you. I think it'll be Punk, Knight, and Jay versus Seth's crew. I have a feeling Roman was written off with all the tsunamis he took. Okay. Also, rumors of him not coming back until Survivor Series, with him being in the Street Fighter movie. Okay, right. Yeah, I know he's filming that Street Fighter movie. He did take some tsunamis here, and you might have to plug Jay into Roman's spot. I was thinking Jay could add and be the 4th guy, and then Seth's crew could add another faction member, and then you do an 8-man tag. But that sounds kind of likely about what they might have done with Roman Reigns here. And he did lose another pair of shoes, which we'll talk about in a minute. Zane G, thank you for the $10. Think about it, Greg. The Warrior sued McMahon, and WWE held McMahon hostage, paid him, fired him, and McMahon still brought him back. So Triple H is probably taking the Vince role. Triple H is evolving into Vince McMahon before our very eyes. And one thing I will say about, maybe this will help, one thing I will say about folks on the other side, they can be a bit dramatic sometimes. I'm never watching this company again, and blah, 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 blah. So I get, there's outrage on both sides. So, I get that, some folks can be a little bit dramatic, and I'm very turned off and grossed out by Brock Lesnar being back, but I'm also 48 years old. And I've been around the business so long and seen all of the things that WWE and wrestling has excused in the past. This isn't even that bad in the grand scheme of things that we've seen before. It's bad, don't get me wrong, and it's gross, and, it just gives you the willies to even read through some of the details of that lawsuit. But think about all the other fucked up shit that WWE has excused or scandals they've had. It's a lot. So this is in the range of the serious offenses and stuff. Brock's is on the low end, but he's got allegations that are just kind of like reputation ruining type of stuff. And there's some things that, are worse than doing something legitimately like illegal, because that was the big talk of the day. Oh, it's not illegal. Well, there's some states having a fucking nugget of weed is illegal, but being a racist piece of shit is not. So, just if your definition of what's legal and illegal, it's kind of weird. But Triple H taking the Vince role is pretty similar to that. But with Brock, there was never a falling out with WWE, really. There was maybe that first one, but he came back. But the reason Brock has been gone isn't because of any problems with WWE. It's because of his name being in that lawsuit and WWE not being able to use him. So there's never really any issues there. But your point is correct. Triple H is going to do things a lot in the same way that Vince does, especially when it comes to bringing back talent or stars that may have been canceled for any reason, or whatnot. And 10 more from Zane G. TKO can release wrestlers with X amount on the contract. Braun Strowman's contract can pay Lesnar a crap load. They can basically do whatever they want there. I'll never watch WWE again until SmackDown on Friday. Yeah, there you go. That's and with less serious stuff, this Brock stuff is very serious. But years ago, when John Cena was winning a lot, I'd see the same thing. John Cena would win another title. I'm never watching again. I'm like, yes, you are. Yes, you are. The fuck are you talking about? You're never watching again. Give me a break. Yes, you are. So it's the same thing. Sometimes it's serious issues, and sometimes it's just booking decisions. And John Cena wins again. I'm never watching until the next pay-per-view when I say I'm never watching again. So it's a cycle. Anyway, let's get back to Raw. So like I said, Rollins and his crew opened up the show. Heyman goes through and introduces everyone, and he finishes, of course, with Seth Rollins, and Rollins gets on the mic and he gloats and he throws shade at CM Punk and he throws shade at Roman Reigns, as did Paul Heyman. And he said he only told 2 people. He told his wife and he told the Oracle, Paul Heyman. So Reed and Breaker were not smartened up to this. And when Rollins said that, I immediately looked at their 2 faces and they didn't really react at all. I was waiting for Breaker to kind of jerk his head or just do a little tilt, any sort of tease. And I didn't really see that from either guy, but Rollins is basically outright saying, hey, I didn't even tell my own faction members. I only told you. A lot of people probably feeling left out. Seth Rollins even worked his own daughter. Worked his own daughter. Poor little kid, thinking daddy's all hurt. Kids are idiots. They think there's a fat jolly man flying around, flying reindeer, delivering presents to houses, so kids are idiots. You should work them. It's good for them. But he worked his own kid. And then we saw footage of Becky Lynch at Gorilla when he was cashing in, saying, like, "Were my social media posts misleading?" And I'm like, okay. Let's pause for a minute, shall we? I know that this whole entire thing is going to be in its own episode. WWE Unreal has not even been renewed for a second season, but it's going to be. And this will be an entire episode. It will be all on this. And this company is going to suck themselves off like they're the greatest creative geniuses of all time because they fooled everybody. They worked everybody. Nobody saw this coming. Even Ariel Helwani, who's just sometimes a propaganda arm for WWE, said the same thing. I got to be honest, I was worked. Oh, were you? Were you really worked? You know, I will give WWE credit for this because they had me 75% convinced it was legit. And I said that in the predictions. I'm like, with the injury, and I was citing Saturday night's main event. That felt too weird. The LA Knight win felt too weird. They now had all this extra time, and then it goofed up Goldberg stuff, and I felt like all of that would have had to be intentional if this was really a work, so that's why I was 75% legit. So props to WWE. They did technically fool me, but it's not like the idea of Seth faking wasn't on our radar. It was all over my radar. On Saturday in the watch-along, when Punk is celebrating, we're going, is Seth coming? Is Seth coming? Is Seth coming? Is Seth coming? And then Seth came all over our faces. And we knew it was a possibility. I had him possibly coming out last night. Basically, from the very next day, fans were picking up on the fact that something was off. By the next morning, we're talking 11 hours after this happens, fans are like, oh, they might be faking. So WWE, of course, in the Unreal documentary, it's going to be very unreal because it's going to be their telling of how they work the audience. They're probably going to show a article from Fightful, or they'll show a clip of Meltzer or a clip of Shawn or somebody like that. And then they're like, yeah, sometimes you got to work those guys. And like, nobody was worked. We were all talking about it. Everybody was like, there's a really good possibility that all of this is bullshit. And I was saying, I really hope that it is, because if it is, that means Seth Rollins does not need surgery on his knee, and we're not going to lose him for a year. That means he's back and healthy, and he's about to be world champion. And I like that scenario way more than him sitting on the shelf for a year. So him coming back and showing up and this whole thing being a ruse was going to be good news for me if it happened. So I think WWE needs to stop pretending that nobody saw this coming. Everybody saw this as a possibility. Some people were even guaranteeing it was going to happen. I guarantee you Seth will cash in. So many people said that. I didn't, but some did, to their credit. They were so certain of it that they were guaranteeing it. Where I was like, it could happen. But I had my doubts. I had my doubts because of how the injury on Saturday's main event was executed. And if it would even be a big enough moment for him to cash in. I wasn't sure if it would land on night one. It would be huge on night two, but it did. The way it was set up with him coming out and then dropping the crutches, that was phenomenal. That was all great. So it was awesome. Great way to close SummerSlam. Definitely the type of surprises and the type of cash-ins that I like, but let's not pretend that creative geniuses, WWE fooled moronic peasants down here and nobody saw this coming. Just stop. So anyway, he only told his wife and Paul Heyman, and then he was interrupted by LA Knight. And I like this because LA Knight, now in storyline, he's got to be really pissed because at Saturday night's main event, you could see the disappointment on his face that he had to win like that. And I think the next night on Raw, or the following Raw, he did one of those Netflix commercial interviews up in the stands, and he said, he looked right into the camera, Rollins, I know you're going to come back better than ever. And it felt like that was like a real personal message. Sometimes the talent will do that, and the way Rollins, or Knight didn't really celebrate the win, and then he even wished Rollins well. That's a heel or a babyface wishing a heel well. I was like, that's sometimes what happens when you're legit injured. Some of your peers, even though on camera or on screen, you might be more enemies, behind the scenes in the locker room, you're homeboys. So sometimes you just want to give a little thinking about you to your friends. And so that was all things I was thinking about with that. And so I was like, yeah, I feel like the injury's probably legit, but it sure as shit is weird. So LA Knight loses, then he wishes Rollins well. He was tricked. And now that Rollins is the new World Heavyweight Champion, what was the last match Rollins had? It was a loss in the middle of the ring, clean, to LA Knight. So there you go. I thought that was going to be your Clash in Paris match. I was like, oh, they're going to do LA Knight and Rollins. But then Adam Pearce comes out because obviously LA Knight wants a title match against Rollins. And then Rollins is like, is that what you want? Is that, you knew he was building up the crowd. Is that what you want, me versus you for the world championship? No. And he tells him no. You saw that coming. Pierce comes out pretty pissed off. He's like, look, your medical team lied to my medical team. You lied to our medical staff. You lied to our management. You lied to me. And this is not normal circumstances. So you are going to defend the title tonight against LA Knight in the main event of Raw. And at the end, he adds one more tidbit. He is banning Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker from ringside. So that had a lot of fans thinking we were going to see a new member of the faction debut tonight, but we didn't. But I kind of thought that might be fun if we did as well, but nothing as of yet. Then we're backstage. Dominic, he's walking with Judgment Day. Dominic, I got to give him credit, man. I was very impressed with that victory over AJ Styles, a legend the caliber of AJ Styles. Dominic doing it without the help of Judgment Day and taking a page from his own real shoot biological father, Eduardo Guerrero, and beating AJ Styles with a trick that Eddie used to win his match, his title defense against Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 20. And Dominic was able to get his boot unzipped, blast AJ in the face with a boot. And yeah, technically it wasn't clean. It wasn't a foreign object. A talent the caliber of AJ, for Dominic to be able to beat him just by using little dirty tricks on his own is pretty impressive, because Dominic, is somebody that usually requires a lot of help from other people to get the job done, and he was able to do it on his own. And it wasn't just an ordinary match. It wasn't Ludwig Kaiser he was beating there. That was AJ fucking Styles, and it was an Intercontinental title defense, successful one at SummerSlam, and I was proud of Dom too. That slender, sexy fellow, he's going to be your 2026 Money in the Bank winner. And I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about Dominic. That sweet mullet, that mustache of his, that handsome devil right there. Briefcase time for Dom next year. Mark it down. So he's happy that he's still champion. Balor, of course, as long as he's got gold, his grin's from ear to ear. But in the background, Raquel and Roxanne are not too happy. And then AJ shows up and gets in Dominic's face and gives him credit for the win, but also says, "Hey, I'm still going to be chasing that title, man. I'm still going to be chasing it. I just say that there's things out there, and I'm going to be chasing your title, which appears to be, if I'm not mistaken, round and flat." So that was fun. We're going to get more matches with AJ and Dom. Then we get Sheamus and Rusev again. This is what the third match now. So these two are going to have yet another banger. They beat the hell out of each other. And it was one of those things I'm always happy to see these two guys just smash each other. That's fun. But you could kind of see this coming a mile away. If they're going to have some sort of like final match or blow off or whatever, it's not going to come here in this match. I feel like something's going to happen here, and then it's going to give them a reason to book the blow off with like a stipulation or something. So this turned out to be, after they beat the hell out of each other, this turned out to be a double count out when Sheamus has Rusev outside of the ring, bending him over the barricade. And the move that he usually does on the ring apron with the forearms, he's doing it out there, and he just keeps smashing Rusev to shit. And the referee just keeps counting. And then, so the referee is counting while he's counting his forearm smashes, and the fans are counting those. There's a lot of counting going on, but it got both men counted out, and then there was a big pull-apart brawl. The shillelagh was involved. All the officials are down there to try to separate them, and I do think we did get that match announced for next week. What was it? I'm trying to find it in my notes. Tell me in the chat, didn't they announce a match between them No, not them. It's Sami versus Rusev, excuse me. So we don't have that match announced yet. So next week it's going to be Sami Zayn versus Rusev. I'll talk about that in a minute. That should be another Sheamus interference, and that should prompt Adam Pearce to book some sort of stip at Clash in Paris. That's what you got to do, because those two guys will be over there. That match could be a lot of fun. I would book Sheamus and Rusev in some sort of a fun stipulation match at Clash in Paris. I don't want a last man standing, something different than that. What are your suggestions? Something fun. I don't know why I don't want last man standing for that particular match. I think it's because I want 3 counts and near falls and stuff. But what kind of match could they do in Paris that would be really, really fun? It's probably going to be some like Belfast Bulgarian French fry brawl. Something like that. It's probably something named after France, named after Paris. Maybe one of them gets a giant, like, toy-sized Eiffel Tower shoved up their ass. Something fun. I feel like something with a stipulation to where the fans can really have fun with the match. That's what you set up next week on Raw, and you book that for Clash in Paris. That's what I would do there. Then we get a... Where'd we go? All the way back up here. Then we get a backstage segment with New Day and Grayson Waller, these three. My God. Grayson Waller with his little thing. They all look like idiots. Grayson Waller might be, with that outfit, might be the craziest one, but Xavier might be gaining with that hat he was wearing. I don't know. So they all look crazy. They're in mourning because they lost their tag team titles, and then Waller wants to be a member of the New Day now. He goes over to Adam Pearce to try to get, a title shot for them, but he's already busy talking to Penta, and then Penta takes exception to Waller in his really, really weird shirt coming in and interfering and interrupting that. So Pearce makes the match for later, and he goes, you're going to be booked one-on-one versus Penta, and we go right to that match after the commercial break, and Penta does get the win, beats Grayson Waller with a Mexican Destroyer, and takes out both members of the New Day, who then came out there walking, and you got this flying saucer on the head of Xavier Woods, and he took out both of them at the end. And I do want to credit Grayson Waller with getting in tremendous shape. He is in great shape. I think all that hanging out with Austin Theory, he's kind of getting a little jealous. He goes, I got to get myself shredded like he is. So anyway, Penta over Waller. Okay, I was just looking. I'm like, did I remember to write that down? I did. All right, so next up was Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair. They're going to be in the ring now for a promo, brand new tag team champions. They haven't been on Raw in a while. I think Cole said Charlotte hadn't wrestled on Raw in 4 years, which is nuts. And Alexa, it's been 2.5. So now that they're tag team champions, they can go on every brand. So they are here. And they get in the ring to celebrate. They talk about how many titles each one of them has won. And they're having a little funny back and forth. I really like their dynamic. Charlotte is very easy to take like this when she's in this team, when she's got somebody to play off of, when she can have, a fun chemistry with someone on screen. These are the type of things that I can only help Charlotte. Charlotte has always been kind of such a loner. She had that one tag run with Asuka, but she never had some sort of a relationship on screen with anybody, really. She had the friendships with Becky, and there was the submission sorority or whatever it was, and all those weird things, but she never really, had any sort of ongoing story or someone to form an alliance with or play off of or anything like that. And Alexa Bliss is so interesting because of her previous association with Bray Wyatt and how some of that stuff, you can still see it in her. And she's got the Lily doll, and she's a little bit different than the Alexa Bliss she used to be. And if that winds up coming out and mixes in with Charlotte, all that stuff I find very, very potentially enjoyable, I should say. And it keeps Charlotte away from the world title scene. She's not hogging up a spot there, wearing out her welcome with the fans, getting everybody to boo her. Everybody is pretty tolerant of Charlotte in this role, and there's really no reason to go out there and just shit on her all match long, because you don't do that when the wrestler is doing something you find entertaining and enjoyable. But, if Charlotte is just back again, challenging for the next world title at the next show again, fans are just, we're over that. So this is Charlotte's kind of her road to redemption. And ever since she came out dressed as a fucking banana on Monday Night Raw and got absolutely shit on to the likes that only Hulk Hogan has seen before when he was in LA for his last appearance. And that really, really rattled her. And ever since then, it feels like Charlotte has taken notice and said, let's do what I can to repair this image that I have with the fans, and they all fucking hate me. So I think that she's making a really good effort. And the fans are to the point now where there's no reason to be like a cross-eyed Charlotte hater. She's not doing anything wrong. I think I like this a lot. I like the two of them together. They're fun. So they, of course, then get interrupted by R&R, Raquel and Roxanne. They want a match, and Alexa and Charlotte are like, yeah, sure, we don't give a shit. We'll beat your ass again. And it was a clunky interview, something about the A word. Remember, we'll kick your A words. And Charlotte flubbed up one of her lines, and it sounded odd. It sounded like, when Ronda Rousey would have those awkward exchanges, or she'd say things on the mic that I was like, what the fuck was that? What the hell was she even talking about? It felt a lot like that here in this promo. But Alexa and Charlotte are down. They're like, yeah, sure, we'll have a match. And then Adam Pearce comes out and says, normally I wouldn't let you guys just come out here and just start making matches, but fuck it. It's been a wild weekend. Let's just go ahead and do it. Championship match on the line. Charlotte and Alexa defending against Raquel and Roxanne. And they successfully retained. Sister Abigail from Alexa for the win. Didn't appear, unless I missed it, didn't appear to be any sort of miscommunication in this match like there was at SummerSlam when they kind of teased that maybe they were going to split up there, and then they won the titles instead. So this was probably just a way to give Raquel and Roxanne that rematch and get that out of the way so Charlotte and Alexa can start focusing on other opponents. And I'd like to see them cruise down to NXT. I think it might be fun. Charlotte in the ring with a Blake Monroe or I don't know, something like that. Could be kind of fun. So we'll see. But Charlotte and Alexa still women's tag team champions. And I would say in the entire history of the women's tag team titles, they might be my favorite team, because I don't even remember other teams. I was never an Iconics fan. I'm sorry if you were. I just wasn't. Maybe, actually, I take that back. Bayley and Sasha are tough to beat. But second favorite, Alexa and Charlotte. After that, we go backstage again. Oh, I'm sorry, no. Yeah, we're backstage again. And it's Io Sky hanging out with the Kabukis. So the three women are back together. I love them. I didn't understand what Asuka or Kyrie was saying to her, but I heard Io say thanks, but no thanks. So they might have been offering, hey, do you want to reform Damage Control or Kabuki Control or whatever we'll call ourselves? And Io's like, no, I'm going to be a loner. I got my solo album, and I don't want to get the band back together. Not sure what they were asking her, but Io declines. And that's when Rhea Ripley shows up, and she talks to Io and says that she knows that Io went and got a title match. So Io has got herself a title match coming up with Naomi, and Rhea's like, I know you went and asked Adam Pearce for a title match. And then Io goes, yeah, because I wasn't pinned at SummerSlam. So even though there's a language barrier and the English is choppy and whatnot, the way Io delivered that was pretty funny. She's like, I didn't get pinned, just so matter of fact, I didn't get pinned. That's why, you're the loser over here. I loved that. So funny. And so Ripley says, that's fine. That's okay. I want you to win. I want you to win so I can beat you for the title. And we've talked a lot about this scenario over the past couple of podcasts with Rhea Ripley and when she's going to win back that championship. Currently, Naomi is the champion, and she just won it. So I really needed her to retain at SummerSlam, which she did. I honestly think it's a little bit too early for her to drop it. And she's got two more huge title defenses coming up in the span of 3 weeks, because she has to face Naomi for the championship, or she has to face Io Sky for the championship next week on Raw, which they would announce later. And that's what Ripley was referencing when talking to Io. So it's Io Sky challenging Naomi next week on Raw. If Naomi survives that, she's got to take on Stephanie Vauquin, as she says it. So Naomi is in a really good spot here to have some solid title defenses. If this is going to be a relatively short run and Rhea Ripley wins the title like I expect her to in Perth at Crown Jewel in her home country, I feel like she should beat Naomi. Because if Naomi's going to have a short run from July to October, just a quick one, at least she's going to rack up some big wins. She's going to, of course, she won the championship, and then she successfully retained against Io and Rhea Ripley. Then she beat Io again. Then she beat Stephanie Verha. Then she goes to Crown Jewel, and it's the end of the road, and Rhea Ripley wins the championship. And I think it would be better to go in that direction than have Io Sky win the title next week. But as a fan, Io Sky and Stephanie Vicaire is a way better sounding match to me than Stephanie Vicaire and Naomi. So I'd actually prefer if Io did win next week, but I don't think that's the route you need to go. I think you got to let Naomi keep the championship. She's good. I love this heel version of Naomi. I love it. So I would have Naomi find a way to win next week. Maybe Rhea Ripley has something to do with that. And Ripley maybe unintentionally costs Io Sky the championship. And then Naomi goes to Clash in Paris, and she somehow survives Stephanie Verha. She somehow survives that. And then she drops the title to Rhea Ripley in Perth. Because if you had Io Sky win the title back, then you're really cutting short Naomi's run just for Io to lose it to Ripley. I think it would be better if Ripley defended against Io Sky, who she's never beaten before. So I think Naomi survives Io Sky next week on Raw, probably with some sort of an unintentional assist from Rhea Ripley. Then she also somehow survives Stephanie. I don't know how that's going to happen yet, but I feel like she needs to. Then she goes to Crown Jewel. She loses to Rhea Ripley. Ripley finally gets the title back after all this time. She wins in her home country in a big crowd. I don't know if it's a stadium show or not, but whatever's going on there, big moment for Rhea Ripley, wins the title instead of in the middle of the show on SummerSlam night 1 or night 2 or WrestleMania or whatever. She wins it one-on-one. Maybe you put it in the main event, and Ripley has her moment. Now she's champion again. Her very first title defense should go against Io Sky. Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley at Survivor Series. That way I can watch that in Petco Park. And that's where Rhea Ripley wins. Finally beats Io. Finally gets that monkey off her back. Keeps the title at the same time. Then you finish out the rest of the year. You go into the Royal Rumble. And you have Stephanie Vicaire win the Royal Rumble. And you make yourself a second Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania by having Ripley put Vicaire over. And now you got somebody in Stephanie Vicaire that I think is going to have just as much like marketing ability as Ripley. You know how Ripley's really over like on TikTok with people who aren't even wrestling fans? I feel like Stephanie's got that in her as well. So that's what I would do if I was WWE, you know. It's like back in the day when you had a Rock in Austin. That can be your women's Rock in Austin. You can have Rhea, you can have two of them. You know, Ripley and Vicaire both have tremendous looks, you know. Both are thirst traps for every single male from here to fucking Timbuktu, and they're both really good in the ring. Especially that Steffers there. She's good. So that's the way I would do it, and I think cutting Naomi's run any shorter than Crown Jewel would be doing a disservice to her. So that's why they might be lining up all of these matches for Naomi to give her at least a solid amount of title defenses. She'll be doing a lot more. If my hypothetical actually happens, she will have done way more in her couple of months as champion than Io Sky or Tiffany Stratton has done since they've won the titles. You know, WWE didn't really, especially Io there, you know, other than that big win at WrestleMania and whatnot, like what the hell were they doing with her? So that's how I think it should all go. And I think Naomi should enjoy a little bit of a run here, have some successful title defenses, but ultimately run into the Eradicator in Australia. That's what I think. We are then backstage to Lyra and Bayley. Well, Bayley's walking backstage. She's looking for Lyra because she feels bad about what happened at SummerSlam. She comes across Lyra, and Lyra's just not having it. And Bayley's like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She's like, do you know what this means? I can never challenge for that title again until Becky is not the champion. Or I can't do her accent. And she storms off all mad. And like I said this in the SummerSlam review, I'm like, okay, Lyra, I love you. You're awesome. It's like, but you can wait this one out. Let's not be over dramatic about it. There are a million other championships in the company you could challenge for, and this one particular one is going to be off Becky sooner rather than later. It's not like, if there's one person that could have a super long run with it, it actually is Becky. But typically, you don't have 2-year long runs. It's not, you see less of those than you do more of those. So I think it's more likely, statistically, numbers-wise, that all you got to do is wait a few weeks or a few months at the most, and that title's going to be off of Becky's anyway, and then that stipulation is all gone, and it doesn't even matter. It might take you that long just to build yourself up to a title match anyway. So, if the timing worked out, the stipulation wouldn't even matter. So I think Lyra is a little bit too angry about a stipulation that really, in the grand scheme of things, is not the end of the world. But I think Lyra could maybe go to SmackDown, target the United States Championship. Maybe her and Bayley try to team up again. Hey, well, if I can't challenge for the IC title, then you're going to help me win the tag team titles. You owe me at least that. Yeah, and that eventually leads to the eventual Bayley turn. So maybe that's what they're going to do. I don't know. But anyway, Lyra mad right now. Then it's time for Dominic Mysterio. He's going to be taking on Dragon Lee. I think this was set up backstage as well. So Dominic's got to go out to the ring again right after successfully defending his title last night and have yet another match. This one against Dragon Lee, and of course it's going to be Dom, Dragon Lee, El Grande Americano, and Vikingo all battling in that four-way at Triple Mania, which I believe is August 16th. And that's why I predicted Dom to retain at SummerSlam, because I felt like WWE probably wanted him to be Intercontinental Champion going into that match, just to have the Intercontinental title there present in a Triple Mania ring. I don't know, it just sounds cool. So he will be IC champion going into that. He beats Dragon Lee when two El Grande Americanos show up to help. The second one shows up to kick Dragon Lee in the face, and then Dom takes his boot off again, just like last night, blasts Dragon Lee in the face and gets the pin. After the match, AJ Styles comes out and runs off Dominic Mysterio. So now we have, fans are just like, Jesus, now there's 3 El Grande Americanos. It's just an illusion. If you knew your wrestling history, you would know and understand that wrestling and WWE does these type of things, and they've done them before, and every time the fans are fooled. Go grab your VHS copy of WrestleMania 9 and pop that sucker in. Look at the Crush and Doink match. This is a perfect example. And Crush loses the match because of what the fans believe to be a second Doink, but it's just an illusion. So here, fans are seeing multiple El Grande Americanos, but how can there be multiple El Grande Americanos? You don't grow those masks on trees, So he already ran out there. I don't know what the fans thought they saw on the other side of the ring, but whatever it was enough to distract Dragon Lee, and Dominic got the win. So I think it's cute the way some of the younger audience doesn't understand how illusions work. It's adorable. They just don't get it. Oh, it must be 2 of them, But I'm like, no, just go back and watch WrestleMania 9. But you weren't old enough because you weren't alive back then. So you've probably never even seen WrestleMania 9 or seen any other examples of when fans used to think that WWE had a bunch of clowns running around. So it's like the same thing here. They don't get it. I mentioned, the height differential. Like, well, this one's taller. And I'm like, because Mexican inches are more than American inches. How does nobody understand this? It's so easy to understand if you're smart. But anyway, there's multiple El Grandes according to a good portion of the audience. But luckily, here on this channel, we're a little bit smarter than that. After that match, we had a Sami Zayn interview with Jackie Redmond. This was kind of interesting because he was talking about Karrion Kross. And it was reported by Fightful Select earlier on in the day. Go subscribe to Fightful Select, by the way. That Karrion Kross was not at Raw tonight, and his contract, him and Scarlett's contract, both are up this weekend. So Sammy talks about the match, talks about the pipe. He says he said he wanted to use it, but he couldn't use it, and talked about just wanting to be world champion, did mention Karrion Kross by name. And then Sheamus and Rusev, who apparently have been brawling all this time, I'm hoping they at least paused for snacks. So they were brawling all of this time, and they come spilling into Sami Zayn's interview. And later we would learn that Sami Zayn is going to be taking on Rusev one-on-one next week. So Sami didn't get to say his full piece and we didn't get too much of a hint more as to what's going on with Cross, but it does sound like he may be gone. Up next was a Becky Lynch promo. She comes out with her Intercontinental Championship and brags about how she won, and she talked about Lyra not being able to challenge for the title and whatnot, and that's when Nikki Bella comes out. Never seen Nikki Bella and Becky have a promo exchange before, so I kind of thought that was interesting. Because when Becky was in there, I'm like, well, she's going to need a new challenger. Lyra can't challenge for the title, and Bayley and Lyra are kind of busy messing with each other, so Becky could stand to have another opponent right now, and Nikki Bella is going to be who it is. So, okay, so Nikki comes out, and she says that she thought Becky, had all the potential in the world back in the day, but she's really disappointed her. And then Becky Lynch reminds Nikki that she also saw her at the premiere, or she saw her on set of Happy Gilmore 2, because Nikki Bella was in the movie and her scenes were cut. So Becky brings that up, and then Nikki calls Becky a liar, just like her husband, and then Becky says that her and her hot husband are the hottest couple of all time, and at one point that could have been you, but you can't see him anymore. Well, did I deliver that properly? What did she say? She said, at one point that would have been you, and you can't see him anymore. And man, like, that was a fun line and everything, don't get me wrong, but the crowd popped as if the Road Warriors just won the tag team titles again. It was like, Jesus. They were like, that gif of the kid going like that. It was like they were all like losing their shit. I'm like, that's not even that out of bounds. I would expect Nikki Bella opponents to bring up John Cena. We all remember that. And John Cena and Nikki Bella, I think, are on good terms. So it's not like a touchy subject the way, maybe Charlotte's divorces are. It's pretty much in bounds as I see it. And the way the crowd reacted to that line was pretty incredible. They really went nuts for that. So, I mean, it was fun and everything, but I don't know if the pop was worthy of, or what was said was worthy of the pop that it got. But anyway, Nikki wants a championship match, of course. She wants to challenge for the Intercontinental title, and then Becky just sucker punches her, hits her in the face with the microphone, and walks away. So we're probably getting that. Becky Lynch and Nikki Bella, just depends on if they do it at Clash in Paris or if this is just going to be a Raw match. But Becky and Nikki look to be headed for a showdown, and I liked the hot husband line, and I liked the John Cena line and whatnot, but man, that pop was really extreme for that. Then we get Naomi. So Naomi had a couple of interviews. She had one out on the stage when we were at a commercial break, and now she has another one, and that's when she reveals that she's facing Io Sky next week for the championship, and then Stephanie shows up, as Naomi calls her, and she says that basically that it doesn't matter who wins next week between Io Sky and Naomi, she's going to be winning in Paris. And right after that is when they also announced Sami Zayn versus Rusev. So now we've got Becky Lynch backstage. She is confronted by Natalya, who's very upset about what she did to Nikki, and Natalya wants a match against Becky Lynch next week. And Becky says, fine, I accept your challenge, but not against you, against her, and points to Maxine. So I was really excited there for a minute that we were going to get a Natalya match on Raw, because Natalya's doing a lot of wrestling, but it's not on WWE TV right now. So we're going to get Maxine instead, and Becky is going to obviously take liberties and take advantage of poor Maxine, and that will probably lead to a Nikki Bella run-in, and Natty will be involved next week. Maybe even Bayley gets involved here, but Becky's going to be in an uphill battle there because Natalya will probably be at ringside for Maxine, and I'm sure Nikki Bella will be waiting in the wings to run out there if Becky tries to pull any shit. So she might have put herself in kind of a bad spot there. And that just left us with the main event, Seth Rollins defending his World Heavyweight Championship. It feels weird to say that, defending his World Heavyweight Championship against LA Knight in the main event. Obviously, nobody believed that we were going to get a title change here. I felt like it was pretty obvious that it was going to be a disqualification or a schmoz of some kind, and that's exactly what it was. Rollins and Knight are battling on the outside. Rollins has Knight down and pulls on the outside of the ring and pulls the mat up, exposing the concrete, and he's going to deliver a curb stomp to LA Knight's head on the pavement. And then you hear the crowd kind of waking up. In comes CM Punk over the barricade, attacking Seth Rollins, viciously beating him up, and Seth winds up scurrying away, and Knight comes in the ring, and he's very angry. Knight's mad at CM Punk for costing him his championship match, but at the same time, if Knight was about to get curb stomped on the pavement, he wasn't going to be winning any titles anyway, so Punk might have saved his life. But LA Knight wasn't too happy about that, so they're kind of arguing a little bit. Then Punk is on the outside, and in comes Braun Breaker with that 250-mile-an-hour spear down the entrance ramp, cuts CM Punk right in half. Reed also attacks. They start beating down CM Punk. They start beating down LA Knight, and we knew that we were going to see Roman, but it really never came. So they get beaten down, and then Rollins is posing with his crew. You see the credits there rolling, the Lee Fitting and the Triple H, and then now they're all the way. Were they on the outside of the ring or not? I can't remember. But basically it felt like they were going off the air. And then finally at the last minute, because I was expecting Roman the whole time, but WWE was really making you think that they were going to go off the air. And I'm like, oh, maybe we weren't going to see him. I thought I read online that he was spotted at Raw backstage. What's he doing there if he's not going to be used? So, who is he? R-Truth? So he's out there. He finally comes out there at the very, very end. His music plays. He runs out to the ring. He starts taking out everybody, takes out Reed, takes out Breaker. Seth Rollins retreats, but then Reed and Breaker wind up taking out Roman Reigns. He eats a couple of tsunamis, I don't know how many, and then Bronson Reed steals Roman Reigns' shoes again. So now Reed has 2 pairs of shoes, and now it just depends on what they're doing at Clash in Paris. Are we going to get some sort of a tag team match here? What's going on with Roman Reigns? There are some rumblings that he's filming the Street Fighter movie, and what was done here tonight might have been a way to write him off TV for a little bit, and he's not going to be at Clash in Paris. So it might be Punk and LA Knight and Jey Uso versus the 3 of those guys. That might be what they're doing, and I feel like if they're going to do Brock and John Cena in the main event of that PLE, then some sort of a tag here involving these guys would probably be likely on the Raw side. Not that you can't have 2 title defenses on Clash in Paris, but the fact that Triple H likes these 5 or 6 match cards, it's probably going to be short. So 2 of those matches being big world championship matches, that feels like it's a lot. That's 28% of your show, world title matches, and a tag might be better. So it just depends on what's going on with everybody, what Roman is doing, and if he's now going to be taking some time off until Survivor Series and he comes back to be a part of War Games. They could be doing that. If this is it for Roman, it could be Jay and Punk and LA Knight battling this faction for the next couple of months. And then you book a War Games match and you have Roman coming back to be a final team member at the last minute. But if that's going to be the case, who's going to be joining Seth's team? Because the War Games match will probably be a Raw match, right? There's nothing on SmackDown they could do unless they did Team Cena and Team Lesnar. Shit, they could do that. But I've been under the assumption that War Games would probably be a Raw match because of the faction and stuff that's over there, but it might be something else. But Roman might be done until we get to Survivor Series. We will see. Hopefully we'll learn some info on the interwebs tomorrow. So that was pretty much your Raw in a nutshell. Not a bad show. Decent show for a post-SummerSlam event. But it all goes back to Brock Lesnar, and had he not came back at all last night, I think we would be talking about SummerSlam as an even better show than what we were, because that was a deal breaker for a lot of fans. A lot of them were just like, ugh. So, and I think they kind of did everybody wrong. We were hardly at all talking about Cody Rhodes being the new World Heavyweight Champion. We haven't even talked about that. We haven't talked about how he carried that match and really made that match good and made that match great. They both did, but Cody was doing a lot of work there. So I would have liked today to be more about giving those guys credit for pulling off a really good SummerSlam main event and making up for and making good on the main event that shit the bed at WrestleMania 41. Hey, guys, appreciate that. Thanks for making that right. But Brock coming back at the end kind of like spoiled it for a lot of people. Some people were thrilled, but a lot of people were spoiled. And that's kind of my thought on that with WWE. Why would they intentionally do that? Like they have to know if we have Brock come out at the end, that's going to completely dominate the headlines the next day. Cody winning the title isn't going to be talked about. The great match that Cody and Cena had isn't going to be talked about. It's all going to be Brock and all the controversy attached to his name. Is that what we want to be doing? It is? Oh, okay. I thought it would have been the other way, but okay, whatever. Let's call him. You know, is that the way it went? So it kind of ruined it for a lot of fans, and I can understand their viewpoint. I don't know why it's so hard to understand someone's viewpoint. Are you sure, Jacob? We talked about that last week at Crown Jewel. Are we positive they're doing that championship thing again? I'm not positive that's happening. WWE has not announced that, have they? Because that I thought was more for Saudi Arabia. Didn't those big, ugly, disgusting, gaudy, green abominations they call belts, didn't they stay over there in Saudi Arabia? Weren't they there to be a part of the WWE world that's over there? Why does Australia need that? You know, WWE just needs to do whatever they need to do to make Saudi Arabia feel special with that big deal. But they don't need to do that for Saudi Arabia or for Australia. And I would rather Crown Jewel just be a regular card. Fuck this champion versus champion shit. I'd rather have those shows on the Saudi shows, on shows that we don't really care about. But Crown Jewel could be a big deal. And I would be bummed out if WWE did those stupid champion versus champion matches when you're sitting at a golden opportunity there to have Rhea Ripley win the title in her home country. Well, that's doggone funny. What if Rhea faces Tiffany in Australia? Rhea has held since Mania, and Rhea has never held the WWE Women's title, only the World title. That is a really good point. We have talked about that we still might be getting some sort of a draft or, at the very least, some sort of a talent shuffling. And we've talked about names. I've talked about Jacob Fatu and Jade Cargill going over to Raw. What about Rhea Ripley going to SmackDown? She'd have Damian Priest over there. The Terror Twins would be reunited. And she can now feud for that championship. But she's still going to have to do that Io match at some point. So in order for that to happen, like they're telling the story with Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, there's going to be another match. And when it happens, Rhea Ripley's going to win. So I like the idea of my scenario with the World Heavyweight title, but good point about the WWE Women's Championship that, you know, maybe it could be Tiffany and Rhea Ripley. At least in the future. So Phil Wilson is saying they're doing world versus world champs. Where is this information coming from? We've known this how. We know this how. Just let me know how. Like, how did you know? How do you know that? Because I swear we brought this up over the weekend, and all the people in the chat that know shit, nobody was like disputing it. They're like, oh yeah, they might not be. That's just a Saudi Arabia thing. But if WWE somewhere in the advertising for Crown Jewel has said that it's champion versus champion, that's what I will consider proof. Otherwise, if just somebody online saying it, we don't know that for sure. But I could be wrong. I haven't really looked up any information on Crown Jewel at all. So that information could be out there. And if it is, that's going to bum me out. I don't want that show to be title versus title. Although it is weird why they are titling it Crown Jewel. I did find that odd. I thought Crown Jewel was kind of reserved for Saudi Arabia. So putting the Crown Jewel title on an Australian show would be weird unless they're also bringing along a Crown Jewel concept. So Phil might be right. I just hope he's not, because I don't want world versus world. Give me sources. Yeah, Doug on push. Nikki Bella called her Stephanie Vacquet. And the first week, I liked when Naomi was like, "Hey, Stephanie Vacquet," or however you say it. And now she's like purposely butchering the name on purpose. I love it. Anywho, all right, guys, I got to get out of here. Kind of a longer Raw review than normal, so let me get the hell out of here because I've got some dinner to eat, and I got to finish watching those WWE Unreals. I've only watched 2 episodes, so Elizabeth and I are going to at least check out one tonight, and I'll let you know my thoughts on that on the next one. Keep a lookout on the channel. In the next day or two, I will put up a watch-along link for this Sunday. I just got to decide which show we're going to do. I think it's going to be another SummerSlam. Maybe like another bad one, like 1996. I'll give it some thought, let you guys know. And if anything else crazy in the world happens soon, I'll be up here to talk about it. Otherwise, I'll catch y'all in just a few days. Have a great rest of your Monday night. And thank you for a really long and fun and entertaining and controversial SummerSlam weekend. Y'all are the best. Peace.